I want people to just keep on exploring, deeper, deeper, deeper into what it is that's so good about this, whatever it is that you get off on. And when you get to the root of what it is that you love about it, some key features, some really root things, then you can start to create experiences that have nothing to do with that context, but have that same root. One of my favorite stories of all time, Ram Dass. I don't know if you know Ram Dass, originally called Richard Alpert. He was a psychiatrist, Harvard guy, teacher, and he went off into a spiritual direction with his career. And he spent a lot of time in India learning, at the foot of the guru kind of thing, and really just passionately learning everything he could about the way to extricate ourselves from ego and suffering. And he was giving this lecture many years later as an older man, with gray beard and, by then probably long flowing robes, because he wasn't Harvard guy. He was, he wasn't Dr. Richard Alpert. He was now Ram Dass, which means God's servant. And there's this woman in the front row, and a little old lady, and she's just, every word he says, she's like, oh, yeah. And you know how, like, when somebody that you're talking to is responding in a way that proves that they get you, they get what you're saying at its most, sort of core element. They're following you. And after his talk, she came up to him to shake his hands, and he says, ma'am, I just got to ask. I mean, you really were on board, with this whole, the talk that I was giving, this obviously, spiritual focused talk, kind of enlightenment kind of talk. And he says, well, what do you do? What's your in, how did you get this, to the point where you were fully understanding it? She just smiles. She says, I crochet. And he said, at that point, I realized the game wasn't what I thought it was. That you can derive meaning from anything. You can derive insight from any context at all. Every grain of sand on the beach has, a microcosm of the entire universe, a hologram of all you need within that one grain. And I think skydiving is a pretty good grain. It's an amazing avenue that brings so many different people these, sort of enlightening insights and an opportunity to view themselves in a different way and take on scary stuff and not be scared. That's great. Just don't get so bummed on a rainy day that you cut yourself off from the access to it. That's one of the things I really want to say to the skydiving world. You're still a skydiver when you're on the ground. You're still a skydiver when you can't jump or don't want to jump because it's not safe, or you don't have the money, or you're in your third trimester. All right, you ride this wave as it is, and you're going to find that there's crocheting or whatever, there's something else. You get into playing poker, the high risk of, with hopefully not with money, but chocolates.
We can receive those benefits to ourselves in all kinds of activities. Not just adrenaline-inducing activities, but all kinds of activities.
Yep. I mean, there can be adrenaline associated with anything. Adrenaline is just an indication that you're paying attention to something that clearly you have decided you believe is something that requires your attention, that's worthy of your attention. If it's life or death, yeah, it's kind of a given that it's worthy. There's a planet coming, But if you're taking, your knitting circle very, very seriously, I'm sure that people get an adrenal response from time to time. But I think there is an element within the flow state that leads to these higher harmonics, the experiences of intense emotional connection to a flowing experience. I think there has to be some degree of perceptual risk, physical or psychological. Otherwise, it becomes observer, not involved in that. But it doesn't have to be physical. But that's certainly one of the things in the book Flow that he discussed. Mahali Csikszentmihalyi, which is a big honking name, but worth reading the book Flow. And he's talking about how even the concert pianist, they're not worried they're going to break a hand. You know what I mean? They're not worried that somebody's going to, throw a bowling ball at them if they hit the wrong note, but they still have the worry because at its root, it's not only death that humans fear, it's ostracization of so you're no longer part of the tribe because you've been found unworthy. And so now we're getting kind of to the root of human behavior in a lot of ways. We certainly fear death, but we also fear being alone. And I don't mean just like solo, I mean deliberately alone because nobody wants you. That's like this fear thing. And then in walks the image of the ancient Chinese wise Taoist hermit. All right, you read I don't know if you do any reading of Taoism. It's spelled Tao, Taoism. Means the way, the flow. And that introduces the idea that you don't need anybody to feel your sense of worthiness. You feel your sense of connection to nature and to the universe, and to enjoy the flow of chopping wood and carrying water, of the most simplest parts of life, and to feel that everything has meaning. Even if you're just, scooping your bucket into the river to carry it up to your tiny little hut, you're still doing something that is sacred because it's the flow of life. And that is sacred. So I think that's helpful, for me, when I get into this state of fear of ostracization, or I don't know if that's even a real word, but exclusion. I try to listen to those old dudes, those old Chinese dudes that were perfectly happy living in their little hut. They probably wore ratty old sandals or no shoes at all, and they were at peace.
I think often after student status, after we get a few jumps in our belt, the fear of failure is much more significant than the fear of death often for skydivers. We're going to screw up this jump. We're going to screw up somebody else's good time.
Yep.
I think that fear is often more prevalent than fear of injury or fear of death once we get a few jumps.
Yep, absolutely true. I mean, you'll have moments, right? Once in a while where you have a malfunction, line twist, or whatever it is. Look down, can't find the drop zone. Everybody will continue to get moments of pucker, and that's fine. But yeah, that's my experience too. That most of it is about worrying about what other people think of me, because I don't fully feel worthy of my own competence, to assign my own comfort with my skills. I require a recent data point to prove that I'm competent. The long-term memory has nothing to do with self-esteem from the perspective of the ego. I think we got to get better at that one, and have a longer memory for our positive past and a shorter memory for our failures, because I wasn't trying to do that anyway. Any failures like that was not my intention. And if I have my intentions alone, then every time I went off the path into the briar patch, it's like, yeah, okay. It showed me where the path isn't. How many was it? 200? I forgot the number of experiments that were done with the light bulb to try to get it to work. And then eventually Edison found the one that actually worked. And then he said, I didn't fail hundreds of times. I found hundreds of ways to not make a light bulb. Love it.
But if you don't follow your path, you know what I mean? The one that feels right in your gut, what are you?
dreams like a kite without a string get blown away on the March winds. Don't let go of the main sheet even though the boat is heading much too far. And those deeds are done again as my life was done again, as those deeds are done again, as my life was done again. Watermelon sugar, watermelon sugar, watermelon sugar. Renew your pick